love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed. Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your Virtual Broadway Tour.
The last of the Channing Brothers' 3 theater complex and this week's theater, the Majestic, finally opened just a few months after the Golden and the Jacobs. Not only the largest theater in their complex, when it opened in March of 1927, it was the largest theater on Broadway. As its name implies, the theater was magnificent and grand, and it quickly gained a lucky reputation with many early hit productions. Early successes aside, one show in 1945 really put the Majestic on the map: Rodgers and Hammerstein's Carousel. Audiences embraced the musical's themes of love, life, and loss, the latter hitting close to home with World War II still being waged overseas. 4 years later, Rodgers and Hammerstein would have another hit the Majestic, this time with World War II front and center in the show, South Pacific. Just outside the theater, audiences will see a blue street sign with the moniker Rodgers and Hammerstein Row. Established in 1993 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the famous partnership. Of the 9 shows they wrote together, 8 of them opened on 44th Street between 8th Avenue and Broadway. Their only show that didn't open on that block wasn't very far away. 46th Street was alive with the sound of music. South Pacific starred big-voiced opera star Ezio Pinza as Emile and Broadway leading lady Mary Martin as Nellie Forbush. Martin was initially hesitant to accept the role for fear that her voice wouldn't live up to Pinza's booming bass. Rodgers and Hammerstein wooed Martin into the role with one simple solution: the pair would never sing at the same time. South Pacific tackled the serious issues of racism and went on to win 10 Tony Awards and the Pulitzer Prize. It became the second longest running show of its time. The most talked about number in the lush score was Nellie's Song of Defiance in the first act. One day during rehearsals, while showering, it occurred to Martin that she'd never seen any actor wash their hair on stage. Rodgers and Hammerstein, taken to the idea, crafted "I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair" for Martin to sing while showering center stage every night. It was difficult for Martin to get all of the soap out of her hair on stage, so she'd wash it again after every performance and then again before the next day's show. On an average week, Martin washed her hair 20 times while playing Nellie for 3.5 years. That is a lot of rinse and repeat. On January 26, 1988, The Phantom of the Opera officially opened. After winning the Olivier Award in London in 1986, producer Cameron Mackintosh and composer Andrew Lloyd Webber began preparations to transfer the show to Broadway. The pair originally envisioned the Martin Beck Theater, now the Hirschfeld, at 1,400 seats as the ideal theater. Large, but not too large. However, with the successful opening of Sondheim's Into the Woods at that venue, that was looking like a near impossibility. The Schuberts, eyeing a hit that would generate lots of money for all involved, offered their Majestic Theater. Mackintosh and Lloyd Webber were nervous that the production would get swallowed up in the 1,621 seats of the Majestic, but ultimately agreed to open their show there. Fun fact, over the past 30 years, those extra 221 undesirable seats have added an additional revenue of over $400 million. With the theater secured, massive renovation work began so the Majestic could accommodate Phantom's vast technical elements. Over $1 million was spent as crews blasted into the schist rock under the theater to allow hundreds of candelabras to be hydraulically lifted from below and reinforce the ceiling to allow the iconic chandelier to be raised and lowered. Thankfully, it paid off. But it wasn't just the real estate and renovations of the Phantom of the Opera that were a logistical nightmare. issues permeated the onstage talent as well. Andrew Lloyd Webber had written Phantom with his wife, Sarah Brightman, in mind, as female lead Christine Daae. With the blockbuster success of the London opening, he naturally wanted her to repeat her performance in New York. The Actors' Equity Association, the governing body for performance contracts, wouldn't agree to a British performer taking a coveted new lead role that could just as easily be played by an American. Through a series of discreet negotiations, including Lloyd Webber's threat to take the show along with all the job opportunities a smash hit musical could provide to another nation instead, it was eventually agreed that in exchange for Brightman on Broadway, Lloyd Webber's next show, Aspects of Love, would open in London with an American in the lead role. So, in 1988, with the original London star intact, Phantom opened at the Majestic, where it continues to be Broadway's longest-running show 32 years later.
You guys, happy Saturday. Can you believe? I think I say this every week. Can you believe it's another Saturday? Because it is. And I also think I say every week that I feel like I just saw you and I feel like it's Saturday again, and it is Saturday again. And here we are in this like eternal loop of life, of insanity, of a global pandemic, of a Broadway shutdown. I love you all. Welcome back. This is, as always, our Saturday Noon on Broadway series as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. Every week, we're coming to you live with someone who has worked at the theater we're featuring that week. And this week, we are joined by the incredible, the golden-voiced, the very talented Jason Forbach from the Phantom of the Opera at the Majestic Theater. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close in New York City. We do tours of the theater district, history, ghost stories, all the things you didn't know that you really want to know about our 41 Broadway theaters. We've been in business. I put on my green shirt for the first time in 2010. So it's been 11 years. Since then, we have 5 different exterior tours that we offer of all the different theaters. Theater tours in Times Square. We have our Hamel tour downtown. We have our Ghost Light tour of the haunted theaters. In October of 2019, we opened our our newest tour. It's been a year and a half, but well, it was cut short, so it doesn't feel like a year and a half, but here we are. That tour is the Hudson Theater inside Broadway's oldest theater. It's been there 118 years. So check out our website, www.broadwayupclose.com, for all of the info on all of those tours. Our exterior tours, every tour except our Hudson tour is active and is going. I can almost guarantee that if you book a tour, it'll probably be just you and me with your own little like private staycation moment here in New York City. So come and join me. We also have a slew of virtual tours that we're doing both through our website as well as in collaboration with playbill.com. So check out our website for all of those. You should not do that right now. You should stay here and you should hang out with me and Jason. And then you should go after the event is over and you should go to broadwayupclose.com. Here we are. I never envisioned this world of 2021, a brand new year. Broadway's been gone almost a year. At this point, I thought, okay, we'll be wrapping up our series. We're finishing up our final weeks. Broadway's about to reopen. Isn't this exciting? And then here we are. It's January, and we still have no idea what's happening in our lives. And so on along we chug. When I started this series, I said we'll do one theater a week. That's 41 theaters. That's 41 weeks. I said, well, that's insane. That's going to take me forever. But it'll be fine. And here we are. I can't believe it. Week 32. The Majestic, our 32nd oldest theater. As we hit less than our final 10 weeks, thanks for joining me on this journey, and I hope you've had a good time. I also hope you have enjoyed all of our fun facts and history from the Majestic, all of our Phantom, South Pacific fun facts. How's today going to work? For today's series, we'll learn all about Jason's theatrical journey, his time working on Phantom. I think he even has some Phantom fun facts about dry ice, maybe? I don't know. We'll see what he has in store. If you have any questions for him or about him, his journey, or me at any point today, drop them in the comments as you're doing so eloquently already, and we'll feed those in live. And if you're joining us live, comment with where you're watching us from so we can see where our stories are going on this beautiful Saturday. And so, are you ready? Without further ado, join me in welcoming Broadway's Jason Forbach. Yeah.
Woo, hi.
Oh, God, here we are. Dreams do come true. Oh, gosh. How are you?
Hi there. I'm good. How are you?
So good. Happy Saturday.
Happy chilly Saturday.
Yeah, it looks
are.
so glorious, but it is it's definitely winter.
Oh yeah, she's frigid.
Yeah,
She's very cold out.
She's a cold girl.
Mhm.
For those not in love with you, the world should know it. We all love Jason. He's a dream. So let's just preface that with he's one of our nearest and dearest. So for those who aren't lucky to already be in love with you, will you tell us
Yeah.
where you're from, where you went to school, when you first got you see theater for the first time and you're like, that's an interesting thing. And then when that turns into like, I'm going to do this for my life, get us from
Right.
birth to New York City, and then we'll go from there. Good luck.
In about 30 seconds.
Correct. Go.
You know, I was always an artistic kid. I grew up in Kansas City. And so I was like, I always say that a career in theater was never something that was like an option. It didn't seem like a reality to me, but I enjoyed it. And I liked doing lots of different things. And I was in the marching band and the symphony. I would like choir and the news. Like I was always doing lots of things, right? Because I just didn't know.
Marching band? What did you play?
Oh yeah, the clarinet.
Really? And you did the whole like marching with the feet and the whole.
Yeah. I had a beautiful roll step. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's about the extent of my ability to do choreography.
Great. You're like, I do that in Phantom every once in a while. Just really good heel to toe articulation.
Ooh.
The opposite of ballet technique. They're like, lead with your toe. You're like, no, I lead.
It's like, I can't do that. Yeah. Heel first.
Okay, so really great. Okay,
yeah. So I was a music person, and I went to school to University of Missouri, and I thought I'd be like a journalism major. So I worked for the paper there, and I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was like, maybe this, and I was like, maybe not. And then I got a music degree there, and then I got a master's in opera at the New England Conservatory in Boston. And I was like, maybe I want to do opera. And I was like, maybe not.
Great.
And it was kind of later in my journey when I was like, you've always wanted to do theater. I did theater in school, like in high school and some in college. I was like, just do it. Like, come on. And so I kind of got the nerve to go to New York. And so I found myself kind of older. You know, everyone has this like timeline thing where it's like, I have to get there at this age and da-da-da-da. And I came there, like, I felt like I came to New York when most people kind of had that year or two trial, and they're like, peace, bye.
This isn't gonna work. See you.
Yeah. And so I felt like, oh, I'm starting so late. I'm so behind, and I had no professional experience.
What's your definition of so late? How old are you at this point?
Well, this is my thought process at the time. I was probably like, I don't know, late 20s.
Yeah, which is, in the grand scheme, that is, yeah.
Yeah, most people come out of their undergrad program at 21, all like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to hit the ground running. And so I was coming a bit late, which was totally fine. And I actually am so appreciative of that time, because I think there was something to the age that I was like, okay, I can handle this. I can be a little bit more adaptable. Yeah. I'm not so easily scared coming to the big bad city. But and then I came to New York and just decided to kind of pursue this thing. And so that's kind of been my life ever since. Yeah.
And then you set down your suitcases and you have your thoroughly modern Millie moment with your like pigtails at the age of 27. You're rolling your heels down the streets of New York City with your clarinet, and you're like, New York City, I've arrived. Good luck.
Right.
And so then you start auditioning. Does the industry instantly embrace your golden voice, or does it take a minute for people to be like, who is this guy and why is he?
No, not at all. Because I came from the opera world, everything was like just big, loud. It was a particular style. And I was trying to figure out how to adapt it to theater, and I didn't have that kind of training. I didn't have any connections. So I was just going to open calls, just blind. So it took years, and people would look at me then and they're like, okay, Mamma Mia. And I'd be like, "Hur," and they'd be like, no, that's not going to work. So I didn't get it.
Yeah, sure. One of these times, I don't know if today's the right moment, but at some point in life, we need to hear you sing like, money, money, money must be funny. Like you as Mamma Mia, but at 26, rolling through the transition. This is good. This is better than I ever knew it was going to be.
So
then
dumb.
what's
Dumb.
the first audition you book that it makes you think, okay, I'm not wrong for thinking I have talent. Other people have recognized that and are paying me money to do that?
Well, it was truly like years. And then there were two instances that kind of happened that kind of flipped things for me. And the first was I was talking to an old friend because I sang at Boston Lyric Opera, and one of my old friend colleagues from there referred me to this weird audition. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing opera. That's not my life. I'm moving on.
Right.
And he's like, it's not like that. It's like a play. It's like this weird thing. And it was a play that Wallace Shawn wrote with a weird opera in the middle that they needed high school kids to be able to sing.
Okay.
So it was with the new group. It was with their anniversary, I think their 10th anniversary season. And I booked this play with incredible actors, and I got my card and I got my agents because they all just came to see it.
Sure.
And new group is really has quite the reputation. And I didn't even know what I was stepping into, and so essentially all the qualities that I already were exactly right for that job.
Okay.
And that was like the first kind of, I was like, oh, I felt a part of the New York theater world. I felt like I was in the union. I felt like I could go to audition. I felt like I had access. And that changed everything for me. And then shortly thereafter, I can't remember when this happened, but I was always doing these cabarets just to sing and to be out and learn and meet people. And this guy I knew from my hometown was singing in these cabarets with me, and he had a gig he couldn't do, and he's like, I'm just going to refer you. And I was like, great. And I just showed up, and it was the New York Festival of Song did a tribute to Hal Prince at Carnegie Hall.
What?
I know, it doesn't make any sense.
You were like, what's the address? He's like, 57th Street, just east of it. It's a big,
I know.
You'll see it. Okay.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Okay,
it's one of these infuriating stories because I just showed up and it was like Judy Kay and Lisa Vroman and Brent Baird and Jason Daniely. And I'm singing with these people and I am losing my mind. And I got to meet Hal Prince and I got to meet David Caddick and all these people that were involved with Phantom. And that was like another instance that was just a random occurrence that was just like from above. And it was really influential in me getting Phantom the first time. So, because I had just done that like maybe 4 or 5 months prior. And it was just like, it sounds like, like lightning struck.
Sure.
Granted, I was doing the thing. I was doing the thing where it's like 3 jobs, barely paying rent, doing the thing for years. It wasn't like, and then wow, but it did end up feeling like, and then wow.
Correct. Yeah.
So those were like the two kind of moments where it felt like the universe shifted and I was a part of the New York theater world.
And had you gone in for Phantom or ever auditioned for Phantom prior to this first time you go in for it? Is this truly the first time you auditioned for Phantom at all? With the first time you booked
No, I'm pretty sure I had tried to weasel my way into some like non-ec, maybe you're the 14th person on a list and maybe somebody sees you. I think I had done that a couple of times, but it's like.
Right. The assistant, and they're not looking for anyone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you go in and this is for, if I remember, the Las Vegas company. Is that right?
Yeah. That was like my first big production contract was for the Vegas show.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the ensemble and covered Raoul. Okay. And that was 2007, I want to say.
And it's a short version of the show, or was it the full show?
Oh, 90 minutes, honey.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I remember you telling me or someone telling me, I was like, I think it's an in and out, like, think of me. Okay, on to the next, and let's
go. Yeah. I mean, the nights where we had one show were done at 8:30. So you like get in your car and you go to dinner and you live your life.
Wow. That's
all theater should be 90 minutes.
Can you imagine? Yeah, that was me and Altar Boys. You were like, we're done. It's over.
Oh, yeah.
Good night, you guys. It was like,
it should
always be 90 minutes for the audience and for everyone. For our Netflix attention spans, you're like,
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then every once in a while I'll go see a 7-hour show and you're like, I loved it, but how did they do that? Why
How
would
did they do it?
that?
I
Why?
know.
Yeah, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I'm obsessed
Yes.
with it. But I'm like, how do you? Oh my, I love you. Moulin Rouge. They have to get there a half hour early, and then the show's 2:40. I'm like, you guys are clocking in. Ooh, you guys are working for that.
That's a lot of time.
Working for that.
I mean, yes, Harry Potter's a good example because I loved it, engaged the whole time. I was like, I could do this again. I was at the theater all day and I could do it again. But the whole time I'm thinking about them and I'm like, oh my God. They're never home. They're never home. They have no life.
There's no way they could be. Yeah.
No.
And then, so when you do this in Vegas, so Trinity has a question, which is going to tag onto my question. So Trinity's question is, how often does the original production team come in and look at the show? So my question, before we get to you at the Majestic, and you're in that version of it, in the Las Vegas production, is Hal Prince original creatives putting this 90-minute version together? Are they involved, or even at that point, is it associates and whatnot?
The Vegas one, they were very involved. It was a big deal because between the theater itself, constructing it, all of the high-end new elements, and the production budget, it was about $80 million. It was a huge endeavor.
Oh my God.
And it was stunning. I still have yet to see any theater production like that ever. And I was a replacement, so I was not part of this. But Gillian Lynn, Hal Prince were heavily involved with shaping how this new adaptation would go. Andrew Lloyd Webber was, it was very interactive. I only met him out there, Hal and Gillian, maybe once or twice.
Okay.
And on a rare instance where they'd come in and kind of brush up and do notes and kind of just check in, but they're mostly working, a lot with the team and with the leads and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And of course that would happen with the Broadway company too. It's very, very rarely would you see them come in. Sure. And I've only seen Andrew Lloyd Webber at the theater for the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. So not often. And then of course, so many have just recently passed. So that was like a big change in the environment of, that connection. I'm
going to be honest. Only you talking right now was the first time it's ever occurred to me that when Hal Prince died last year or a year and a half ago, he's still the director of a show that's running. It never occurred to me that he directed Phantom. Phantom is his show, and the director has now died because Phantom is running so long. And so while he doesn't have day-to-day interaction, I wonder if that's ever happened before, where a show is running and the director of the production dies on Broadway.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I wonder. That's interesting. Yeah, that'd be a curious thing to research.
Line or something with Michael Bennett when he passed, the show is still running probably.
Yeah.
Or something. But I guess at this point, like you say, they only come and pop back in every once in a while, so it doesn't really change anything in a major earth-shaking way. But there changes when the original creatives passed?
No, like little details. But the funny thing is that when they do come visit, even for me being like 87th replacement of something, it is interesting to hear the impetus of each idea from the source. Sure. Because it's not like all of the associates and all the team aren't handing down this information beautifully. They are. But it's like, it's a little bit of a game of telephone, and it is a bit of like, we've been doing this for 32 years. So things change and morph. It's a living piece. Yeah. So to hear someone say, I remember watching Gillian Lynn explain to a Madame Giry once how she should hold a note and how it should come down along her body. Like the thought, but the reason why Phantom works is that there is purpose in every single detail. Mm-hmm. And it's funny to see that now because you're like, oh, there isn't a moment that hasn't been thoroughly thought through and polished. And every like lift of a pinky has a reason. I think that's when theater works. Is nothing is arbitrary. So to hear it from the creators, why this one thing happens, you're like, mind blowing. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that all makes sense, you know? And of course, you're going to lose some of that over time, and actors are going to infuse their own element to it, as they should, but to an extent. But those moments were really special. So it was fun to see them work and to see how smart they were and how smart. I don't think there's a better director than Hal Prince and his understanding of an audience's emotional capacity and how the psychology of it works and how your eye is drawn to certain things and how things. It's just, he was a brilliant person.
What a crazy thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking the whole time. Like, and having nothing really, having no interaction. I just was like, just to be a fly on the wall for a second. I was like, oh, I'm soaking this up for sure.
Yeah, it is, and I think those moments illuminate the true genius of these people. When you hear them talk about why they made choices, it's one thing. Yeah, like you say, it's one thing for the associate to say, well, we raise our pinky here because X, Y, and Z. But when it's really coming from his director, the reason we did this is because this, or we were looking for this reaction, we didn't get that reaction, but by having you do this, then it did, and then it worked.
Right.
And so when you listen to them solving these problems in 1988 that are, still running, it really is, in any long running show, I think it really behooves the creative team every once in a while to really kind of sweep in and provide that inspiration and revive. Yeah. Because otherwise you're doing your 8 shows a week. You never see these people. It's just the name in the playbill, and you're 16, so it's, interesting. Okay. So then we have a big question, and it's going to pop up. It's pretty huge, and it's just going to be our eyeballs. So it's a multi-layered situation. Here we are. So do you feel your training in opera and musicals gave you the tools to be able to mesh in? What were other classes you needed to take on the side, maybe to transition from opera to musical theater? And then another question, as you mentioned, you started late. Do you feel it's a rarity you were able to find your way, or is there a place for latecomers to join in? That's a lot. Let's unpack it.
Let me start with the age thing first.
Yeah, sure.
There is no timeline. There is no race. There's no finish line. It's just your own. Everybody's journey is individual. Yeah. And a friend of mine, he came to the city in his 50s to finally begin, and has done nothing but find success. He's already gotten 5 Broadway shows under his belt. He just filmed The Blacklist and Evil. Like, he came when he was ready, and the industry responded because they saw that he was ready. And there isn't this element of being young and trying to figure out who you are even. How can you really, it's very rare for an artist to have such self-assuredness to then be self-assured in their profession too. That's tricky. So I think there's a lot of blessing in it. And this kind of like little voice that's saying, oh God, you're too old, or you're too, no, like I hope to continue to throw myself into environments that I've never been in before and learn. Like, how else are you supposed to grow? And if you're just, you have to try new things. So, block what you hear and don't let the social media aspect of things kind of color what you should or should not be doing. It's like, do it because you love it, and do it when you're ready, and don't let any other outside force pressure you, because there really actually isn't an outside force. It's your own voice.
Right. And I feel like no one's really paying attention to you. Like, you feel so like, well, they're going to know that I didn't, and they're going to know that I wasn't here in my 20s. And I was like, honestly, if you can get in that room and you're in front of the person who's making casting decisions and you're right for it, they're not going to go, well, he's so right for it, but he's 28, and I don't really know, they're going to, if you're really right and they really want you and you have the talent, and they'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're right, they're not going to care where you went to school. If you're right, they're not going to care what age you are. It's like, and they're also looking for all types of people. Like, there's room for everyone at the table, I will say. And then the first,
from opera to musical theater, did you feel like there were advantages and disadvantages? And did you have to take other things to, I like her word, mesh in?
I had a lot of learning to do. Okay. I had a lot of humble pie to eat. Sure. And I still have a lot of learning to do. I don't think the learning ever stops. But the thing that I cursed was having no proper theater training, feeling dumb, singing in a particular way, and not knowing how to adapt. In the end, I am very grateful for that training, because when I came into Les Mis and essentially did that for 6 years of my life, speaking of long shows, it was so taxing. It was so hard. It was it kind of ran us into the ground. Like no one should do that show for that long.
Right.
But I credit my background in that so that I didn't lose my voice, that I didn't have vocal damage, that I could sustain that amount of intense singing for that long. Without having that training, I couldn't have done that job.
Sure.
And I couldn't have made my Broadway debut, and all that stuff would never have happened. And in the end, I kind of grew into this thing where I filled a particular niche, and I liked that kind of music. That's essentially what I like to do. So I wasn't actually trying to be something I wasn't.
Sure.
And I'm okay with that.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm okay with that, you know?
Yeah, and you do it well, and you do it better than anyone, and it's finding your niche.
Wow.
I mean, you're going to find it's rare for an Audra McDonald where they're going to say, here, go do this play, but then here, do this musical, but then do this contemporary musical, but now here, go sing this opera at Carnegie. It's rare. I mean, most people are the business puts you in this lane, and you become castable and profitable in that lane.
Right.
And so I think I think you found your lane, and it's such a rich lane of different shows and different, for lack of a better word, notes that I it works and fits you so well that I think,
Yeah.
it's meant to be, I feel like.
There's always this element where you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Or I wish I was in like these new, cool, modern shows. And yes. And there is always this voice where people think, oh, that show's so tired, or that's such an old style. I mean, you can always kind of hope and wish for all these different things. In the end, I'm happy to be working, and I'm happy to be working, and I'm happy to be a lover and appreciator of theater. And, and now it's like, I see my friends doing shows where you're like, Jagged Little Pill or whatever. And you're like, yes, you get that. I will not be doing that. But
Correct.
I think you're fierce. So,
but you sound great.
Yeah, you sound really great. I love those riffs.
Really, really great. Whoa, you sound really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you live, you learn, y'all. Okay, so when you go to Santa Vegas, things happen. We like just casually drop this in. Your Broadway debut is Les Mis at the Imperial after doing the tour for how long?
3 years.
So you did the tour for 3 years, and then it's your replacement in the Broadway revival. And do you remember your first night on Broadway? Was it memorable? Was it just another tour stop that happened to be on 45th Street? What does that first night of Les Mis feel like?
It was interesting because having done it and developed it and worked it in the US with the 25th anniversary national tour, and then 3 years of that was exhausting, amazing, life-changing, all that stuff, but it was very hard. And there have been so many iterations, so many companies, and so many staff changes. And so by the time we came to Broadway, it felt like the thrill and like release of coming to the end of a long marathon,
Sure.
So it's like, you're devastated, you're exhausted, but you're thrilled that you did it. And so that was a particular mixed bag of emotion when it came to that opening night, for sure.
Yeah.
And then eventually, my husband, Joe, whom you know, and he and I did the tour together. That's how we met. And when he joined the Broadway company, it felt like such a full circle moment. And it was really life-changing. And I mean, I look back on that time, I am still friends with these people. These people are married, and I'm watching dogs right now.
Okay, mine is, mine is passed out. So
Hold on one second.
Yes, live your life.
Yeah, we have like all these dogs through the house right now. Sorry. So it was beautiful and exciting, and it felt like it's a thing you think about your entire life, right?
Right.
You think about this accomplishment and what that means, and it was overwhelming. That's for sure. I think the one that felt more like was something that felt more of an opening night to me was being on the Tonys.
Sure.
Because it wasn't so heavy with creatives kind of overseeing everything. The pressure was a little bit off, and it felt like I could just celebrate for a second. because it was not without strife and struggle and all that stuff. And that was the moment where you're like, I can't believe this is happening. And that was to me, that was like more of the opening night feeling I was looking for, because I could take a moment for myself to be like, how did you get here, and just be grateful for it. And so that was really powerful moment for me.
And we, all of us watching, were like the proudest humans ever. Just you and your like little vest, just like just like living, you're rolling through the heel on the Tonys.
That March step came in handy, didn't it?
You were like, it's basically the same. And they're done that. Here we are. So then, Phantom, how does it come back into your life? Where does you going to the Majestic Theater? What capacity are you in the show when you're in the show? Talk to us about this next Phantom installment in your life.
Well, this was another weird element, because Les Mis ended, so that was like a 6-year chapter that was like closed. Now what? And then I did this kind of mini tour, this pre-Broadway Secret Garden, for about a year.
Oh yeah.
And we were all, that was another complicated, beautiful, heartbreaking moment when it did not transfer.
Right.
So after that year, I was yet again like, what am I going to do? And I was having brunch with a friend who used to be Raoul on Broadway. And he's like, they need vacation swings. Like, you should just call them, give them a call. And I was like,
hey, Hal, it's been a while.
I was like, what? And you know, I have friends that are in wardrobe and work at the area where they hold all the costumes. Like, they have all your costumes from Vegas. And so I emailed the Seth Sklar, who oversees Phantom, also was a part of Les Mis. David Caddick, who I knew from Vegas, was now at the Broadway house with, regularly.
Right.
And it just was one of those moments where I was like, I'm available. All their vacation swings at that time were doing My Fair Lady, Carousel, all these other legit shows had kind of scooped up all their legit singers. So I just happened to write. I happened to have brunch with the right person at the right time and emailed, and he was like, let me see. And it was like, yes. And so I started rehearsals. I joined right around the 30th anniversary. So that was like wild to join a show with the pomp and circumstance and the party of that.
Yeah.
And then I started vacation swinging, and I just kind of incrementally started adding more roles. So I cover, I think, 7 or 8 parts, which I will desperately have to relearn when theater opens back up.
I
was like,
morning.
I don't think I remember anything. But so that's kind of how that kind of came about. Like, if I hadn't done Les Mis, if I hadn't done the Vegas production, and I hadn't made those connections, I couldn't have written an email like that. So, and then I had been with them, 2+ years, and they're a great company. It's a fun group of people. They understand that people have been there for decades. So they are really great about allowing people time off to pursue other projects or to reconnect with their family. And so I found myself in a basically full-time position with that show. So I was like super grateful, allowed me to stay in New York, and it just was awesome.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so this is Mary's coming in with the hard-hitting questions, and I'm here for it.
Oh, yay.
Mary says, when you're on a role like Raoul, do you talk and take advice from previous actors who did the role, or do you work solely with the director and then have your own take? Like in the world of however many 12 Phantoms, however many Raouls, is there? I know all the Elphabas talk because vocally it's like, this is how I get through. Is there that same thing, or is it pretty just you in a room?
It's interesting with Raoul because it is so specific. And you really have to find yourself and your like life's blood within the character, within the confines of how they do the show. Yeah. So that's kind of the challenge. I don't speak with other actors about it, but I'm really in a lot of conversation with our team to make sure I'm doing everything right, everything that's needed, because it's also a huge safety issue. That show is got a lot of elements. There are a lot of pyro, it's a very dangerous show if you are even slightly off. There are a lot of elements that can be very, very dangerous. So you can't kind of just like, go in there full throttle and kind of make it your own, but you do have to find your truth in it. so it is interesting to have now seen. So I learned from watching other people, and you see what kind of, oh, that's so interesting, what works for them and what doesn't work, or what they're trying to convey and what the directors are asking for. And I've learned in the ensemble and covering so much by observing. And so, yeah, Raul is interesting because he can quite easily come across as a very two-dimensional character. And you have to infuse a little bit more dimension and heart, and give her reason to make that decision difficult.
Right.
You know, as opposed, you know, you always hear so many people in the audience, they're like, why did she run off with Raul? He seemed like such a meh. So you know what I mean? And so you have to like infuse some layers in there, and it is not easy, but it is a role I do enjoy playing.
And it sounds glorious.
It's all that reverb. You just crank up that reverb.
Turn me up a little bit. What is it like? So I'm curious so it's been in the Majestic since January 26th or 27th, 1988. It's the same show. Mechanics are the same. How many of the stage crew are the same? What is it like to suddenly be a new member, having done the show before in a capacity that's shorter and new and spectacular? What was it like to step into not a less spectacular, but the original, you know, kind of 88?
Right. Everything is original. Everything is original to that time, which makes you now realize how ahead of its time it was. And I might get this wrong, but I feel like some of the automation devices for some of the larger pieces under the stage were built by like NASA engineers. Like it was very, very intense.
Yeah.
So it's when you step into something like that, initially you really are a guest in their house, you know?
Yeah.
You respect their ways of doing things. You stay out of the way. You kind of just find your groove and then flow with the stream, because it is a well-oiled machine. But there are people that have worked there. Like one of our dressers, who dresses me the most, she was there during 42nd Street.
No, come on.
Yeah. So for the 32 years of Phantom, and then before that, working in the Majestic during another epic run. I mean, these people have phenomenal stories. And that I do, you know, it's interesting being in these shows, and I always cherish it, to be with a company that is older, because we have so much of that history that's left behind. And if I was always doing something like Spring Awakening, I would not have had this like school from people that are like, oh, I was in the Angela Lansbury revival of Mame. And I'm like, tell me everything about it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Welcome to my... That's me.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, these stories are incredible, and people in Phantom have, even the acting company, have been with it for decades. So their stories are gold. You know, original cast of Dreamgirls, the original Aya in Secret Garden, and you're like, yes, okay, tell me everything.
Yeah, and it's oral histories that when that person dies, if they don't write it down or they don't tell the story dies with them. Is the biggest thing I found about our industry, is so many people have so many stories, because of course there's the Hal Princes and they write books and the books are great. Right. But it's these people where you're like, I want to talk to the dresser from 42nd Street who's done all of Phantom. And I'm like, tell me some things.
Yeah, I want the real tea, honey.
The real tea. They have just such an interesting insight that isn't a fly on the wall. They're a working cog of the building. But they bring such a different, you know, so that's me. That I've tried to become a catch-all, and I'm the same thing. When I do a show with older actors, I'm like, okay, good. Everything. Let's go. Yeah. And
the stories are so good and they're so funny, and it's a different way of being a professional in this industry that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And because it's not so social media me focused. It's like, these are workhorses, you know. It's like they leave their blood on the stage. They're not calling out for anything. They know how to respect their fellow. They know how to work in compromising situations. So I cut my teeth with those people, and it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for that. And is that, I'm trying to remember all the elements of that question.
Oh, that's good. This is great. This is great. Tell me about the Majestic. Do you any quirks about the building from 1927? Are there like technology? Like they, of course, they compromised the foundation and the bedrock of the theater in 1927 to build into candles and things. So I know that a lot of the Majestic was morphed or adapted to fit Phantom in 1988. But is there any other weird quirks, things that if we're obsessed with Phantom, that would be cool? Or if we're obsessed with theater, like this guy would be cool?
Well, you know what I always think?
Is it, at this place, everything has its place, I'm sure.
Everything has its place. There really is no spare room. Like if I'm shadowing or learning and I'm backstage, there isn't actually room for me to be there as an extra body. It's like, oh, it really is like by centimeters, so you're like, can I just watch? And they're like, no, you're gonna get hit by an elephant. Like you have to get out of the way. Like there really is no space, but it is super efficient. It's funny because the theater is like one of the biggest, right? It's like the third biggest Broadway house. And it's so dark in there, and it's like this sumptuous big black cave. And I kind of love it because you kind of forget the audience is there. Like they're kind of further back, and it's so dark that I have less nerves at the Majestic, because it's like, oh, the lights come on at the end and you're like, oh, there were people out there. Great.
I hope you liked it. Here we are.
Yeah. Where other theaters, you're kind of like, I see the first 10 rows very clearly. This is nerve-wracking. One of the funny elements I was thinking about this earlier, about the space that I love, is that alley that connects the Golden. Our stage door is through a weird L-shaped alley that connects the Golden and, help me out, the Jacobs and something else.
The Jacobs, the Golden, and the Majestic. Turns out where you work.
Yeah. Those three, and
the hotel,
and the hotel.
Yeah.
And so I think if I find myself being that theater fan all over again when I walk in there and they're like, oh, there's Denzel Washington. Oh, there's Patti LuPone. Oh, people are walking to all their theaters, and those theaters get a lot of changeover. So you see stars coming into what? There's Jeremy O'Harris. Oh my God. And I will never forget when Glenda Jackson was at the Golden, and I was walking out, and she was in a powder blue turban and bathrobe, ratty bathrobe, smoking like this long cigarette, sitting between two dumpsters, just like this. And like the audiences were waiting at the end of the alley, but like ready, everyone's raving about her show and wanting her autograph. And here she is, just looking like, was like glamour. Like it was so just amazing to me.
She just needs her quick before she's
like, she's just over it. And I was like, that woman looking crazy between two dumpsters has 2 Oscars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of theater history that I love, where you're like, oh, she was in Parliament.
Yeah. Legislative decisions for her.
Yes. Yeah. Icon.
And here she is with her long cigarette. That's the thing I think about doing 8 shows a week, is at the end of the day, the Patti LuPones, even the Hugh Jackmans, the Sutton Fosters, the Jason Forbachs of a world. It's these people. You and Audra, or you and Sutton, are like basically same level, same.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Same clarinet background.
Yep.
And I think it's at the end of the day, if you're doing Broadway or you're doing theater, you're showing up to a theater and you're doing that 8 times a week. It's the film and TV. Right. It's go to your trailer and here's your assistant. But this, it's like you're in an old building from 1927. You're in a back alley. There's no room. The dumpster from the hotel is right there. Good luck, Glenda. Let me know if you need anything. It's I was like, it's these old buildings, kind of everyone's on the same playing field from a practical standpoint.
Yeah, New York forces you to be that way.
Yeah, it's like we're all kind of making this work.
Yes. I mean, I will never forget when I first came, well, maybe not early on when I was like a teenager coming to see shows.
Mhm.
And I forget what we saw, but we got onto the subway with the ingenue of the show.
Mhm.
And she had like, you know how, New Yorkers, it's like you have like this Eskimo huge parka thing. There's this much of her face and like, ratty mittens. And she was on the subway like this. And I was like, I think like here I am expecting her to like have a car service. Like, don't they all have cars?
Yeah.
And here she's probably going out to Queens to like,
Yeah.
have a microwave dinner and a glass of wine before she goes to bed. It's like
Yeah.
it was the first moment I was like, oh, these are real people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even people like Glenda Jackson and Pilot Bone are real people, and this is their real job. And it's fun to see them just observing in an alley on your way to work, where you're like, wow, we're all just doing this together, aren't we? We're all just figuring it out.
Then there's something really special, like you have a friend who's killing it in a show. I meet up with you after for a drink or something. There is something still at 36 years old that I think when you say to someone like, how was your show tonight? You're saying like, how was Phantom tonight for those 16 or 1700 people? There is something very like at this part of your life, you're like, I did my show. It's a show that everyone in the world, probably in the globe, has heard of. And now I'm having my drink and I'm having my microwave dinner and I'm getting on the subway and I'm going to bed or whatever. There is something, to me, that is, you've made it. This is the life as an artist, the good, the peaks, the highs, the valleys, all of it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're showing up, you're doing your show, you're singing your songs, you're making your paycheck, and you're living your New York City life. And to me, that is, it's a life well lived. Of course, sure, we could all be paid more, but yeah, it is. That life is to me on some level pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's something to never forget. It's easy to forget when you're kind of in the slog of it, but when you're like, how was your show? And that show for 1,600, however many people, somebody might be seeing it for the first time and it just changes their life and inspires them to do it. And so I think that's the element that you can't forget.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and Joe and I always talk about this too, is like always being aware of it being somebody's life-changing experience, so that you always bring that level of gratitude to it. But yeah, it's a combo platter, right? Like it is your real life. It's your job. Yeah. It's fascinating.
As we wrap up, I want to take like a left turn, and I want to talk about this other part of your life that seems to be in motion and developing, which is the writing side of your life.
Oh, okay.
There's construction happening in my building, and it's, welcome to. It's great. This is great.
Yeah. Sometimes you have dogs and you have construction. That's the way it goes.
They were like, "You won't hear anything." I was like, "Okay, I'm just going to do a live interview." So it was going really well until this. So as we wrap up and my building falls apart, will you tell us about navigating or adding this other part of your life that seems to be going well and being well received? Talk to me about adding another skill to your resume that isn't clarinet.
Sure. Yeah. I've always been writing, and it was only until like 4 or 5 years ago where I kind of, and this has a lot to do with how our world had changed 4 or 5 years ago and how the dynamics of the industry and arts appreciation, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I reached a limit with not necessarily exhaustion for the industry and performing, but I think I was a little run down. And I kind of hit a wall where I just wanted to start telling my own stories.
Yep.
And take a little bit of ownership over what I was contributing to this thing that we all love. And so I kind of was like, I've had it, like just see something through. And so it was one of those moments where you just do. And I just started finishing all of these little ideas that I had, and yeah, spent years like at my kitchen table, just kind of slogging away and making it my other job, being definitive about spending time with it. And yeah, I've since written a few things that have been pretty well received, and I'm now
poetry, novels, nonfiction. What is it?
A lot. So now it's mostly television. I just am newly repped as of like October. So
Right.
that's like
What do you mean global pandemic? Making this global pandemic your own. Here we are. You're like, oh, you
yeah.
guys
So
get a new agent? Oh, your industries. Oh, you guys are. Oh, weird.
yeah, it's like I'm gonna pivot this way. Okay.
See ya.
Bye. Yeah, no. So it's been like actually like a godsend, like I can just feel like I am stretching a creative muscle, and I don't have to leave my house. So yeah, I wrote a play that won an award 2 falls ago, and then have started writing for TV and films, like a short film that won the DC Shorts Film Festival in 2019, I believe, and then have been doing okay in that world. And now I'm like, I'm scared to talk about it because I'm like, ugh. But
Talk about it. Don't talk about it then. We don't have to.
yeah, no, it's good. I'm newly repped, and I am currently working with producers to package a series I wrote to try to sell to networks. So we are evolving. We are trying to see what that has in store, and so we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Sure.
And we're just chipping away. It's like it's a quiet little solitary pursuit, which is so different than being an actor, where you just miss that sense of ensemble. But I do like just kind of like dreaming big in my house and seeing what I can come up with, and it's allowing me an outlet that I never had on stage before, and it feels really good.
Yeah, I love that for you. It's a different. It's a very different. I have a very similar feeling in creating a business, and there's a lot of alone time. You just thinking and going, well, this makes sense in my head, but like, does it translate? Will people want it and consume it and pay money for that thing?
Right.
That I'm creating in front of my brick wall. You know, it is.
Right.
It's bold.
Right. And it's the beauty. I mean, if there's going to be something beautiful that comes out of this pandemic, is that all these artists have had to kind of reevaluate what their art is, what their relationship to that art is. And you can't be an artist that does one thing. You have to be business minded. You have to be financially responsible. You have to be a marketing person. And no one creative person only likes one creative pursuit. You know, I've seen people build their businesses. I've seen people become personal trainers and educators. And it's like, that's actually the way the business is normally, you know, like we have to work in between jobs. We have to supplement an actor's salary with other jobs. That's normal. But if we take acting entirely away, what are you left with? And so many people were left with trying to figure out who they even were without it, and were rattled. And it's like, well, that's a really good, hard question that you should be asking yourself, and figure out what else you are. And so I think being in long running shows has forced me to ask that question of myself earlier, you know, where it's like, I'm not looking to the show to stimulate me or be my identity or whatever, you know, it's like, that is a job. I have to come up with other ways on my own to be creative and figure out ways to be inspired. And so I'm familiar with that. It's interesting taking away that element of ensemble and engagement that is heartbreaking and hard. But that has fueled the success of so many of my friends, is seeing them thrive or be adaptable in this new world. And, you know, hopefully they can implement that when things go back to normal, and we can all be better artists in the end, ideally.
Yeah, you're like speaking to my heart. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this internally for 10 years once I started my company, but there's this idea that I hate about our industry. I love almost everything. I love the insanity of our industry. But the one thing I hate is this idea that you can only do one thing, and by doing something else, you're somehow diluting your true purpose of why you came here, or, well, if you don't have all your eggs in the basket, it'll never work out. And I just I never really believed that. And so I said, but I'm obsessed with these stories, and I have this idea, and I'm going to put some eggs in this basket of this business and see where this goes. And if that continues to go well, like your writing goes well, I'll just figure out a way. I'll hire someone to run it or do it if the acting thing also, and I'll navigate both of them. But why can't, if I have so many different passions, why can't I do this? And you look at so many very successful people, you know, I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and these people, they don't just invest in one business. They're like,
No.
well, it's silly to have just one thing. What if that
Yeah.
thing stops? And
Yeah.
then what do you do? And so to me, I call it a diversified theatrical portfolio. And I think every
exactly.
artist should have that, because we all have these skills.
Yeah, and I think the idea that like, oh, you're doing something else, so because you couldn't hack it, or oh, this or that, that's a toxic idea put upon you by someone who's afraid for themselves that if they diverted their attention away from this singular goal, that their world could shatter.
Yeah.
You know, that they wouldn't know who they were, that they wouldn't know what they wanted. It's a path that is very fixed and clear, and it gives them security. And when you start to kind of chip away, where you're like, well, you know, a life is a long life. Like there can be 10,000 routes and even more ways to get there.
Yeah.
And people that impose that kind of judgment on another artist are so scared to get off the track that is giving them the security that they need, even though it might be misguided. And so that was a hard lesson to learn, because that kind of energy is put on you all the time. And it's just like you have to have your own and blinders and kind of go where your spirit tells you to go, because there are so many options. Like, you know, people are like, how do you get to Broadway? I'm like, well, for as many people that are on Broadway, there are that many stories of how to get there. Like there is no degree, there is no correct school, there's no correct audition song. Like, it's essentially whatever it is, all the myriad things that make you are going to be exactly right to make you successful in this field. Yeah. So I am a firm believer as well.
Yeah. And you throw a global pandemic at people like us. And I mean, I was primed. It sounds like you were primed because you started doing this writing. The roots are already there, right? This just gives you more time to focus. Same thing with me. The roots of a lot of these things that I wanted to develop with my company were there. We started a gift shop, but then this really gives me time to go, okay, how do you make, this is an opportunity to make the craziest gifts. I've always been crafty, but I've never had time because I'm building a business and going to auditions. But now if I don't have auditions and, well, there's no tours happening in person at the start of this, then how do I express myself and use this, as long as I'm safe and what in the confines of this moment? How do you use it as an artist and not just go, okay, for a year and a half, we all sat in our apartments and watched Netflix. I was like, I can't. I mean, I can watch it while I make a tournament, sure. But at the end of the day, we have the work as an artist and a human has to continue even when everything else is falling away.
Yeah, like the world keeps turning. I mean, granted, like I would say strongly the first 6 months of this thing, I was like just trying to get through it. And then, you know, whatever that means. But there was a moment where I was like, no, like this is life. This is real life. Real life is happening. Get up, figure out what you need, like enjoy the situation that you are in and get back to making stuff, because it does. I mean, that's what it always boils down to, is like art saves me. I feel like it saves so many people. And I was like, stop pushing aside the thing that saves you, like lean into it. And I think that's what is the beautiful thing that has come out of this, is resourcefulness in that artistic sensibility, for sure.
You're so smart. We're so lucky. This hour we've gone over. We'll wrap it up. I could talk to you forever. I was like, oh gosh, we'll wrap this up. You're so smart. You're a joy. I love these because I can say to people, oh, I love Jason, but I feel like this is a little window into you as a full human, which even I, knowing as I do, clarinet and all, now I feel like I have a better picture of the full Jason Forbach, and I think we all do. And I'm so thankful for that. Instagram, is that the best way if we want to follow your journey? We'll go look at YouTube videos of you singing high notes, but Instagram is like the daily. Is that what we should do?
Yeah, Instagram and Twitter. I think it's Instagram. Okay. Yeah, either one is Jason Forbach, at Jason Forbach. Yeah.
Okay, great. So go
follow him.
He's a dream. You're a dream. Thank you for spending your Saturday.
You're a dream.
This is so fun. I'm glad to see you're alive. My love to Joe and all the dogs in your house. Happy New Year. And
love you bunches.
Love you. I can't wait to be bumping into you outside the Majestic with you and Glenda.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Soon enough. Your dream. Bye.
Matching turbans.
Correct. Bye. Caitlin said it in the middle of us talking. Caitlin, don't mind me in my building just crashing down around me. It's going really well. Caitlin said, "You're so down to earth. Thank you for sharing your story about Jason." And I think that's it. I think since the moment I met him, it's well, you're going to go on YouTube if you haven't already, and it's a nightingale voice of an angel, just golden notes, right? And again, that's a baseline talent where you're like, that alone could just be a life well lived. But then you get outside of that and you're like, oh, he's a real human and he has real thoughts and he brings stuff to the table as an artist and as a human. And then he starts this writing stuff, and I'm always intrigued by writers because I've written some books with our company and building my business. You spend a lot of time by yourself in your apartment going, I hope any of this makes any sense. And so when you add that to someone who's down to earth and who's an artist and has these skills, I have found that it usually ends well. And so it's been fun to watch, especially in the middle of a global pandemic. Every once in a while, he'll humble brag, which I love a good humble brag I should probably post and tell you that I did this. And you're like, what are you? You're taking over the world one pen stroke at a time. And so I hope you enjoyed a little insight into the lives of artists who are trying to figure out what happens when the industry that is the commercial side of your life, when the bottom falls out, what do you do as an artist? And it's what I've done through all of this, but I had 10 years of a business leading me to this moment of, well, if half of your life falls away, then you just figure out the other half. And if you can't be with people in person, put them in a rectangle box and we'll talk to them every Saturday. So from the bottom of my Broadway-filled heart, I can't do that without you. Otherwise, it's just me talking to my French bulldog Belasco in a box of my apartment. And so thank you for showing up and being on the other side of my box. I appreciate it. I never thought I'd say the word box so many times, but here we are. Our ornaments are back in stock. That's what I've been doing for the last 2 weeks of my life. We're doing 4 marquee ornaments a year. So here's a couple. Here's, of course, our Hudson and the Lyric are my 2 favorite of our set. And so all of those are back in stock. Give me all your money. Go spend all your money on ornaments. I know it's January, but we haven't had them in stock. So check those out. As always, let me give you a link to our store, which is BroadwayUpClose.com/souvenirs. Should you want a little discount, because who doesn't love a discount? Yeah. Broadway 10 is 10% off on our website. And then, as always, if you want to follow us for the last 9 weeks of our journey at Broadway Up Close on Instagram, you're here on Facebook, give us a little like and get all our updates. And then on YouTube every Sunday at the end of every week, we do the full wrap up of our Saturday interview and all of our daily fun fact videos. 9 weeks left. It's pretty crazy. Thank you. I hope you are having, like we're having, this glorious sunshiny day, even if it's chilly. I hope you're having a great weekend. Welcome to a brand new year, a new president, a little more hope, and hopefully a little more theater in our lives by the time this year is all done. I love you all. Happy Saturday noon on Broadway, and I'll see you again on Monday for week 33. All right, bye, guys. One day closer to Broadway. I almost forgot.